All right, welcome back to On the Ball, the podcast from the Vanderbilt Sports and Society Initiative. I'm the host, Andrew Maraniss, and I am really thrilled to have Jane Leavy with us today. She's the author of the new book, Make Me Commissioner. I Know What's Wrong with Baseball and How to Fix It. And Jane is certainly well qualified to write a book like this. She's a legendary sports writer, uh, best-selling author of biographies of some of the biggest names in baseball history, like Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle and Sandy Koufax. She was a writer at the Washington Post for about a decade, and Jane has been a guest previously in terms of Vanderbilt with our Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, where she joined a class that I taught last semester. So, Jane, thank you so much for joining us to discuss your new book.
Lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you too. You said that you fixed your hair and put on some makeup, so at least one of us is presentable.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For
I'm not, do you need me to move closer? I don't
yeah,
really want
it'll help
to,
the
but I'll
ratings.
do it for you.
But this is going to be a fun conversation. As we record this, we're one day away from Game 5 of the National League Division Series between my Milwaukee Brewers and the Chicago Cubs. I'm a little nervous that the Brewers are going to blow their 2-0 lead, but I mean, this is the time to have a baseball book out, isn't it? During the a pennant race.
I
Or
don't know about that. Actually, I think I've gotten incredibly kind reviews. I've been called an all-star spitballer, which is going on my tomb if I have one. But you know, aside from the fact that people don't read anything, um, to most people, it's football season and hockey season and basketball season. And baseball remains, even in its glory, the pennant, chase, well, there's no pennant anymore, but at the end of the postseason, it remains down the list of options for most people when it comes to how to spend their time.
well, for me, this is the best time of year. Because actually of all of that, with uh, the playoffs in baseball and the start of football season. I'm not really a hockey fan, but I know our like Nashville Predators had their first game last night. You can feel even college basketball coming soon, but I think October is a great month for baseball. But you first wrote about baseball as a little kid, and I wondered if you could tell us about A Day Planned by Me, which sounds like in your youthful exuberance of writing that, it was an incredible imagination you had and an incredible day that you planned.
So, I thought I wrote that in sixth grade for Grace Caruso's class. But when I started adding up the numbers, and I'm not good at numbers, I think I was younger. And that would make sense in terms of when Alan Shepard went into space because it was geared towards that. It was an assignment that we had to write. About a week after the first, rocket went soaring off the planet and into the ether. And I remember that we were all called down to the school gym, the elementary school gym, to watch it, along with Game Three of the Game One of the 1963 World Series. But so I must have been about 10, and a day planned by me. And so I found this upstairs. I'm a pack rat. I keep everything, and my family makes fun of me. And yes, there's the shredding that's going to have to happen is going to be tough. But I found this thing on, this old lined paper that you used to use as a little kid. It goes, basically, I imagined that first we would take a rocket ship to Coney Island, me and my gang. I didn't remember I had a gang. There were some kids down the block I liked. And we would go to Coney Island on my rocket ship, and then we would take the rocket ship and go to um, Yankee Stadium for a game, and it would last. I think it said it will last 1,000,000 innings. And then we'll take my rocket ship home. It was supposed to end sometime about, I don't know, 3 or 4 in the morning, and would take my ship home and pick up the rest of my gang
Okay.
and go back to the Yankee Stadium. I had that down all right, and play another game which would last 1,000,000 innings, but the Yankees will split up. What I was trying to say is I would be on a team with some of the Yankees, and the other team would have my gang, obviously, and the also rans. And that is my idea of a perfect day.
I mean, who could argue with that?
Right, exactly. I'd be fine with me right now.
Now, at this time, I know you played Little League baseball. I assume were you the only girl in the whole league? Was it
I was the only girl in the whole United States.
States? Right.
And it was
Wow.
discriminatory because
Yeah.
I wasn't officially inscribed in the Roslyn, Long Island Blue Jays roster. I just kept showing up. And so they finally gave me a cap and I could throw. So I did what Clayton Kershaw did the other night. I was mop up. I was just there to get pummeled. And I never got a whole uniform.
Oh man, but you still loved it.
I still
Um, and Mickey Mantle was your favorite player back then?
Mickey was my guy. And
Yeah.
I was actually conceived on the day that Mickey Mantle hit his first major league home run out of Comiskey Park in Chicago.
How did you realize that?
It required some reporting and embarrassing my parents. But I don't want to get, well, they're both long dead, but my mother's description of the event was enough to paralyze me for 10 years.
I
Um,
can only imagine.
yeah, me
Wow.
too.
Well, when I was 5 and 6 years old, we lived in New Jersey near Philly. And briefly, I was a Phillies fan, although I always consider myself a lifelong Brewers fan, but I was a Phillies fan. And Dave Cash, their second baseman, was my favorite player because I loved his 75 baseball card where he was backhanding the ball. He had one of those red satin jackets the players wear under their jerseys back in those days. It was
Yeah.
just a really cool card. And I always hoped and thought that my dad would bring Dave Cash home with him one day, like for my birthday or just to play ball. Like I was constantly disappointed that this never happened. Like, did you have imagination that like you would be hanging out with Mickey Mantle at some point?
I think that what kids do, as best I can recall it from this vantage point, is they project themselves into a scene. Um, so I was aided in that by the fact that my grandmother lived one loud, long foul ball from home plate at the old Yankee Stadium, and I could hear the sounds of the crowd roaring, that ricocheting up the side streets near where she lived, on which she lived, and I could sometimes hear a thwack of a bat, and I could sometimes hear, the echo of Bob Shepard's introductions, um, and I think that so even though I couldn't really see into the stadium, I fantasized that I could. I was convinced I could. It took till adulthood for me to realize that the front of her apartment actually faced the opposite direction. But from the what do you call it, the fire escape, which God forbid I go out, I would go out there, she'd kill me. Um,
Mhm.
but from the fire escape, I could peer out and see down 157th Street to the back of the stadium. And also, her synagogue was very small, and it was on Walton Avenue, which is the avenue she lived on. And so at the high holidays, which are Yom Kippur and the Day of Atonement and Rosh Hashanah, which is the New Year. First we celebrate, then we get miserable again. Um, uh, the services took place at the Concourse Plaza Hotel, which was the swanky place in the Bronx. It's where the Yankees had their homecoming lunches. It's where every presidential candidate who ever visited the Bronx went, JFK included. It had a beautiful ballroom with a balustrade that ran around the side. And it was a conservative synagogue. So the women had to pray separately. Fine by me, because that meant I was up high and in the ballroom were these fabulous brocade drapes. And I would wrap myself in these drapes that were, basically as high as the ceiling and peer at the back of the stadium down the hill. And there's that place. It still exists in the new stadium. God forbid I don't even want to go there. But the new stadium where you can see this a slice of the subway tracks, the IRT
Mhm.
go up to 161st. And, I fantasized I could see Hector Lopez running after an unseen ball. Of course, I would have been seeing into right field, not left field, where he butchered so many catches. Uh, so, and you think as a kid that you will affect outcomes. It's all about you. So if
Yes.
I was there, you know, Mickey wouldn't have fallen down while I was trying to swing a bat. If I was there, um, you know,
Oh, yeah, of course.
Billy, Billy McCovey wouldn't have, whatever. It's all a projection of yourself into the action of adulthood. And
Mhm.
so I did a lot of that.
My dad and I blamed my sister for walking into the room. It was in '87 where the Brewers had a big winning streak to start the season, and then when she left, Rob Deere hit a home run to win the game. Like we're convinced that it was her fault, and then the fact that she left, of course, meant the Brewers would win the game. Um, all
Yeah.
right, so to fast forward to your book, um, you wrote that you hardly recognized the game that you loved, and that you were in Cooperstown, the famous, is it Otesaga Hotel?
Onasaga.
Otesaga. Um, and I know that's where so many people stay when they're there for the Hall of Fame
Only the
induction
Hall of
ceremonies.
Famers are allowed in.
Only the Hall of Famers. All right. Um, and maybe like thinking about what your next book would be. You've written about these gigantic figures in the history of the game, and you realize there really wasn't another one that you wanted to spend your life researching and writing about. Is that true? No, Robin Yount, Paul Molitor, Billy Joe
Nobody gives
Robideau,
a
those
shit,
guys.
Andrew.
What's that?
Nobody gives a shit.
I know, I
If
know.
you can't persuade, publishing that there is an audience for, oh, I don't know, Lou Gehrig, Robin Young, very worthy subject. Nobody will buy it, right?
Right.
Just like, no. Um,
And so you
so
really couldn't think of one that
no,
was
I mean,
interesting enough.
I have three rules for myself, writerly rules. One is if I think a subject's been done so well that it is definitive, I'm not going to go and do a clip job, or an anti, no, Joe DiMaggio was really a sweetheart.
Right.
Richard Ben Kramer's depiction of him, it was very hard for Richard to write because it was so damning. And,
Hmm.
people don't know this, but writers really don't like to do that. I mean, maybe some really weirdos do, but not fun to just uh, write a screed about somebody who you expected to be a hero and who turns out to be a shit,
Hmm.
which he was. Um,
Hmm.
so there were a bunch of people who were off limits to me for that. And also, I won't write something that a friend has already done. I'm not, for example, ever going to write a book about Vince Lombardi on the grounds that it can't be done better, and your dad is my really good friend.
Okay.
So I'm never going to do that. And when you subtract those out, oh, I have a third rule. I was asked, it was suggested that I do Mariano Rivera, who would be a good subject. Maybe the last really great fireman of, of yore. And
Hmm.
I did it with one pitch, his cutter. Uh, but I don't speak Spanish. And I don't think it's ethical for a biographer to pretend that you can understand somebody without understanding their language.
Mm. Okay.
So I said no to that. And then when you look around, what becomes patently obvious about baseball today is that they don't either have stars of the magnitude of Sandy Koufax, Mickey Mantle, and Babe Ruth, or they don't know how to market them. The one transcendent star in baseball today is Shohei Ohtani, and he is everything, and he's global and he's fabulous. Um, but name another baseball player that you see on something that isn't for ads for pawnbrokers at 3 in the morning after some Law and Order rerun.
That's right.
Aaron Judge, who is perhaps constitutionally um, uh, not interested in being as big a personality as he is a player, should be endorsing, dog food. He should be making dog food. He should, you see this big guy walking across the lawn at Yankee Stadium with these two little silly dogs trailing behind. They're about the size of his feet, you know, and he could do a real mitzvah, which for those of you who don't know, that means blessing. Because it turns out that a lot of the dog food marketed today is really bad for dogs. I found this out the hard way by feeding it to my dog. Grain-free food, which everybody thinks is like cool because somehow dogs shouldn't have carbohydrates either. I don't know why. But grain-free food can cause heart damage
Mm.
in dogs. The FDA has a whole piece on it. And so I was feeding Miss Betty, who is a character in this book, grain-free food, and she has some heart damage. So now I have to give her butter, I have to give, which is gonna, make other heart damage to
Oh,
get the
God.
pills down her throat. Um,
Hmm.
can you imagine an ad of this big galoot, playing with these two little dogs that are, like I said, they're probably about the size of his feet. And it's a natural. And in Major League Baseball and teams need to hire, modern, 30-year-old marketers who think outside the traditional Wheaties box approach to stardom. Um, I'm of the opinion, I know this is retrograde, that baseball should be marketing explicitly against the NFL, not cowering from them, but marketing against. When science enables uh, brain surgeons and whatever to diagnose chronic traumatic encephalopathy, yes, I did
Nice
it,
job.
um, in living people, not just in, those who have shot themselves carefully so that they preserve their brains for science. You're going to find out how many kids have it in high school, how many kids have it in college. And I think personally, the reason you see the NFL sponsoring flag football is that they know that's coming.
Hmm.
And a lot of parents are already keeping kids out of tackle football for that reason.
Hmm.
Um, why not an ad campaign that says, you know, come back to baseball, the game your children will remember? Ooh,
Hmm.
I got
Love it.
that. I got that from a guy who created the Roman ads for baseball. Roman was one of the first product lines that was projected on the rear of the mound.
Yeah.
Now that they use every part of everybody's person and the field as a bulletin board. And Roman, now known as Row, I just saw a new commercial for them, is a dispenser, an online dispenser of male enhancers, the little blue pills that you could get coming in the mail without anybody knowing what they were. along with your Rogaine, though nobody uses Rogaine anymore.
Certainly not me.
Yeah, no, I was going to say you got the look down. So you know, they've made everything about baseball for sale in what is a truly unseemly way, to my knowledge and my taste. But you know, why not market? Why not be aggressive? Why not just say, "Come on, guys, we're not going to kill you. We're not going to make you stupid." You may start stupid, but we're not gonna make you stupider. Sorry, I didn't really say that. It's been a long day.
So, when you talk about what's wrong with baseball, it's obvious you're saying there's things that you believe are wrong off the field, and I assume on the field as well. Marketing being one of them. Is it how is baseball doing right now? Like, I feel like it seems to be doing okay. The attendance was good this year. I don't know how the ratings have been in the playoffs.
Good, good as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Um, So how would you assess some of the changes that have taken place recently, like the pitch clock, the banning of the shift, the extra innings changes? Are fans, whether you agree with the general opinion of fans, embracing these changes? And which do you like, which do you not like?
So I started working on this book in 2021, and the off season of 2021, basically people, were the headlines were baseball's dying, no, baseball's dead, baseball's breaking, no, baseball's broken. And
Hmm.
um, eh, Major League Baseball was slow to come to grips with what was the genesis of those headlines. And by the time, and actually, I started writing just about the time Theo Epstein, the boy genius, late of the Cubs and the Red Sox, um, a killer of ghosts, was
Hmm.
appointed to make baseball fun again. And the rules that they put in, that they tested quite thoroughly at every level of play, were imposed in 2023. And they're good. I mean, generally speaking, the pitch clock is the one that really matters. The game had become the fulfillment of every non-baseball loving person's prescription. Nothing happens. In fact, Theo said to me, in 2021, it was 3 minutes and 52 seconds between balls put in play. Think about that.
Uh-huh.
He said
Uh-huh.
you have 12 minutes to get a hook a 6-year-old on the game and two balls put in play. So it wasn't just that the games had become long, it was that the pace of the action had become laggardly. So the pitch clock, which was actually already on the books, just never enforced.
I didn't know
Well, that's why you come to me for these things.
that.
Um, you look like your mom so much when you laugh like that.
No, that's funny.
Um, it's been a tremendous success, and it didn't take long once it was, put into place for people to realize it wasn't going to kill people. Though Max Scherzer disagrees with that assessment. I don't know of any more testing that's being done on it to see whether anybody thinks it's a factor in pitching injuries.
Mhm.
Uh, I absolutely abhor the Ghost Runner, which was put in during the pandemic. You know, it is about the most conservative thing I can ever say or will say. The point of baseball was that you had to earn your way around the bases.
Mhm.
If you wanted to stick your tummy out and get hit by a pitch, go for it. You paid for it, right?
Yeah.
But you had to earn it. The notion that they're going to subvert something so integral to get the game over with is appalling. Roger Angell, the great late baseball writer and poetry editor of the New Yorker, I mean, it killed him. And so we talked about it not long, that long before his death. And he said, at least, the 13th inning. Well, after he died, I went and started doing research, and I got help from MLB doing it on what percentage of extra inning games end at the 10th inning, after the 10th inning. And 75% of them do.
Hmm.
So it was like over legislating for a problem
Hmm.
that was not uh, that overwhelming. So, in my commissionership, I will acknowledge that it's going to be plenty hard to get rid of the ghost runner. There are exigencies about travel and how far these guys have to go and when after games and da 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 da, and pitching staffs that are already stretched to the max. So much as I would prefer it to go, the way of Johnny Appleseed, it's not going to go away. But in my MLB, it will not occur until games have a chance to end the way baseball games are supposed to end.
Hmm. Now, one of the things I thought was really interesting about the way you approach this book is it wasn't just something that was an expression of your thoughts or things you already believe necessarily. You went out and visited so many different people and places at all levels of the game, to report and to talk to players and experts, and even going to the Sloan Analytics conference or to Driveline. Analytics is a big topic in all of sports, but in baseball right now, I know there are dozens of students here at Vanderbilt that imagine they're going to become the next GM of a team that are coming at it from the analytics standpoint. What was your sort of preconceptions about that going into the book, and what did you learn going to some of the places you went in reporting the book? How do you feel about this movement and the effect it has on the game now?
Um, Two things. When it became apparent, when they announced the new rules, and that included ending the most exaggerated defensive shifts, they're still shifting. It's just not as obvious, I might add. And the limiting how many times a pitcher can throw over to first base. Um, I knew that I couldn't write the book that I started out to write. So I decided pivoted, and I said, okay, I'm going to spend a year going to every baseball, you know, iteration I can find to see how the new rules work and what else needs to be done. And so
Hmm.
that's what you're talking about, is I went all sorts of places. Um, and came to the conclusions I've just basically told you about how I think they work and which ones should and shouldn't be there. What I definitely concluded was that it is ironic that in this country, um, every kind of science is suspect now, except data science. Don't mess with our data science. We've got a clean data, we've got a clean data, and in addition, and it's not just true of baseball, and baseball has a lesson to teach us about this. The respect for wisdom and experience is non-existent. Non-existent. So Dusty Baker, God bless him, who I thought was the most human in a baseball dugout, is telling me stories about those punk ass kids upstairs, are calling down and telling me, your eyes, you can't trust your eyes, your eyes are wrong. Yeah, your eyes don't know what they're looking at. So and he's like, what? The man's been in the game for 50 years. I think I even listed the number of games he had played in uniform or coached in uniform. Um, and, it's one thing to accept and grant the truisms that have been isolated by analytics, and they're ample. Yes, it is easier to score with a walk and a home run than it is to try to string together four singles. Yes, it is more beneficial to move all your infielders to the right side of the infield when a left-handed hitter is batting, you know. old timers would say, oh, well, it's a game of adjustments. Our left-handed hitters are going to adjust and learn how to hit the ball through the hole. That's what Willie Mays said he would do, through the left side. No, they can't adjust because one, they're not taught how to do it. That's why when you see a bunt in the late seasons, you're just going, no, please. They don't practice that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and also it's very hard to go the other way or choke up and do anything with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. So it's very intertwined and very difficult to unravel the way the game evolved because it did so in such a laissez-faire manner. Analytics just took over, and there was no human attempt to rein them in, to say, this is what this is doing, and it isn't good for the game. The most, and I applaud them. Major League Baseball issued a report on pitching and how bad the injury situation is, and it's horrible. It's a plague. It's a biblical plague. Um, and in, fairly almost aside, as an aside, they said, and this kind of baseball, in addition to wrecking arms, and the health of players, isn't good for the game because the game on the field that's being played now isn't as good an entertainment as it used to be. And I thought that was like, bravo, bravo, they said that. Um, so reining it back in to resemble something of the game that it was, um, is the challenge. Your Milwaukee Brewers are an example of a team that does some of everything and doesn't rely exclusively on home run hitting. The Toronto Blue Jays are another example of that kind of team. Um, the Seattle Mariners, play in the hardest ballpark to hit home runs in, so they have to be multi-dimensional too. I'm fervently hoping for a World Series with the Mariners and the Brewers, because, but you know, TV is up this postseason. Well, part of the
Mhm.
reason it's up is because there were the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Yankees, and the Cubs all in the first rounds. And
Yeah.
of the, I guarantee you that if we end up with the Mariners and the Brewers, there's going to be a lot of kvetching in network television because
Yeah.
baseball's no longer really a national game and people don't root for the sport and they don't know the athletes. I know who Caleb Durbin is.
Yeah, but nobody else does. That's true. But all right, so I just saw something on Facebook that the Savannah Bananas are going to play at Texas A&M's football stadium. I think it's going to be the largest crowd they've ever played in front of, although they've already played in front of huge crowds at football stadiums, close to
Silly.
100,000 people. I know you visited, went to Bananas games. I went to one at the Nashville Sounds minor league stadium here and really enjoyed it for the first 10 or 15 minutes and then felt like I had a perpetual migraine the longer I was watching it. But I could see the appeal to kids. I mean, this was constant fun. It was constant music. It was like Globetrotters and the circus all in a baseball game. Um, what was your take on the Bananas? And are there things that Major League Baseball could learn from the way they run their business?
Jesse Cole, the man in the yellow satin tuxedo, it's not really satin, it just looks it. Uh, was a college pitcher who wrecked his arm. He was from outside of Boston. He dreamed of being, pitching for the Red Sox. Wrecked his arm in college. Spent a summer as an assistant coach in the Cape Cod League, of which there is a good deal in the book. And he was in a town called Catuit, and he had an epiphany on the bench in Catuit. He said, "I'm bored, right? Bored." To which I said, Jesse, everybody's bored in Katuitt. Um, what he's done is he's created an entertainment that is a live facsimile of the nonstop brain stimulation that kids are addicted to today.
Right.
Um, and but and that works for obvious reasons. Um, but he also recognized, and this is something that Major League Baseball is loath to admit, but needs to. They don't need to do everything Jesse Cole has done. They don't need to have a mad scramble where every defensive player has to touch the ball um, to get a batter out instead of, a walk. Um, they do need to think like Jesse Cole thinks. They need to say fans first, entertainment always. And they need to make that work within the parameters of a major league game in a major league stadium. Part of what charmed me initially about the Bananas was how they actually um, vaulted past over whatever all the physical and rule in play, rules that make connections between fans and players almost impossible. So I watched one of the party animals. Those are the studly guys who pull off their shirts at first opportunity, because there is a beefcake, aspect to this. Uh,
Mhm.
it isn't all family friendly, but Bananas games have become very big for bachelorette parties. So, but I watched this guy climb into the stands during a game and sit down next to a little boy and say, "What?" You hand him a pen and say, "Will you sign my jersey?" Now, in that
Mhm.
moment, that exchange, there's a complete reversal of roles. It's saying
Yeah.
you're important to me,
Yeah.
right? And the result of that is that fans feel at these games, I don't know, I saw them at Fenway, which was pretty big and sold out, where they can't do the most intimate kinds of moments. Is there voice? I'm hearing voices.
There's a crowd outside my office,
Oh, okay. Of course
but
there's Andrew. Anyway,
yeah, they're not here to see me. Don't worry.
Um, there's, they're harder to do that in a football stadium that seats 100,000 people. And so obviously they've evolved their kind of entertainment. It's constant music, it's constant stimulation. Um, and if you notice, Major League Baseball has adopted some banana-esque touches. There's now music, between every at bat. They got rid of they cut down the player's choice, their walk-up music to 10 seconds. So that's sort of gone the way of the dodo bird. But there is now music, all the time. Um, there's so much music and it's so loud that it's hard to think sometimes, certainly at Bananas games. In my MLB, nobody gives me a chance to talk about this, so I'm grateful. We're going to have dance floors, okay? Because people don't watch baseball the way they used to. And to hold them to the standard of your grandfather who bought a scorecard or a score book even and scored every game that, they went to is unrealistic. It's not going to happen. And you can't even go to a baseball game with a glove and hope to catch a foul ball in most areas. Only in the outfield where there's no netting, no protective
Right.
net, can that happen. So, architecture and changing ways of viewing and changing definitions of entertainment mean that you now have what's called an outfield experience. So, the first was at Camden Yards, and Janet
Mhm.
Marie Smith, who, thunk it up and who since subsequently, helped save Fenway and is now doing to Dodger Stadium what its original uh, visionaries didn't envision, understood that, you wanted a connection with the place. You want that people were not going to sit still. It's just different. So Why not have a dance floor out there? Play the players' playlists out there, one
Right.
one each day, and and then give them away for free, right?
All right.
But
Well,
the thing, Andrew, the thing I'm most proud of, and if they want to get kids back in the ballpark, and I propose letting in all kids under the age of 10 in for free and present numbers showing that it's not going to cost them that much money to do it,
okay.
basically kittens. Um, you got to let them interact with the game the way they interact with the world. So, with the cooperation of a professor at MIT who created the MIT Sports Analytics Lab, and she's a genius, and she's a humanist numbers person, which I didn't think was like doable. But anyway, I
Right.
adore her. Um, we created a game that we tested at a Cape League game in summer of 2024 that she and her students created as a summer school project. We called it Beat the Bot. And so kids could take their mom's phone, Mom, I need your phone, I need your phone, um, and compete against the algorithm, which was trained on the data generated over the season by the players to try to predict what's going to happen next, right? And we had 80 kids sign up for this with no warning whatsoever. Um, and they wouldn't leave. Parents who were accustomed to, their kids getting restless by the fourth inning, were like, "Oh no, we can't leave. We have to stay." Because the kids saying, "Oh no, I have to beat the bot." So
Hmm.
we have to think of ways to entice them back into the ballpark, um, that speak to the way their world is and how they interact with it. Um, because as Tony Kornheiser pointed out to me just the other day, I'm not getting old. I am old.
No.
And the generation that has supported Major League Baseball for decades is going to age out if we haven't already. And
Hmm.
if we want it to preclude it from being completely a sport of old, doddering fans, it's got to be replenished. It's
Yeah.
also got to be more diverse. And I know that's a naughty word in America today, but that's because there's so few American black players, the percentage of whom went from 20% down to 6%. And
Hmm.
they added not just another audience, they added pizzazz. Never forget, it's Ken Griffey Jr. who's got all of America to turn their hats backwards. And,
Hmm.
and it's Maury Wills and Ricky Henderson who lit up the base paths, with their daring and speed. And so they're really missing. Yeah, there's some fast white boys. Trey Turner is pretty good. And the kid in the Tampa Bay, but he's not a white guy. He's a black guy that, trained with one of my friends, black former All-Star Marquise Grissom, who in in desperation because MLB wasn't doing anything, started his own academy to try to raise up, some black major leaguers, and he's been successful. Lewis Butler, the right fielder of the
Yep.
A's, Money Mike, the center fielder of the Braves. This kid whose last name I'm blocking on for the Rays. I mean, it's doable, but baseball requires attention and equipment and a place to play, which makes it a lot harder for a lot of inner city kids. So in Jane's MLB, not only are we letting the kids in free, we're using some of the illicit gambling profits now that the Supreme Court legalized sports betting, um, to fund major league academies, equivalent to the ones they build in the Dominican Republic, to give
Hmm.
inner city kids, black, white, Hispanic, whoever, who can't afford, to learn baseball and to show their stuff, a chance to play. Baseball's become a country club sport. It costs more than to play football or basketball now.
Tell
And
me about it. My son is 12. He's playing travel ball. I mean, it's all told, several $1,000s a year for us to keep them playing. It's
Yeah,
pretty crazy. Um, man, this conversation is going so fast. I promised you like 30 minutes. We're already at 45, but if you've got time, I have a couple more questions.
sure. For you,
Um, um, and it's an easy one. You can take it however you want, but of the ideas on the I know how to fix it side of the book, what's in your mind your favorite idea that we haven't discussed yet? How to
geez,
improve the game either on the field
I'm
or off
trying
the
to think
field?
of something funny, uh, but I'm going to be serious.
Okay.
The scourge of baseball right now, and it goes all the way down to Little League, is the mistreatment of pitching arms. The last year, Major League Baseball paid $1 million for people not to play, meaning, salaries that sat on the injured list. Of that $1 billion, two-thirds were caused by pitching injuries. They know they have a problem. The max heave generation, which has been facilitated by analytics and by a technological renaissance that's, unbelievable, uh, has basically taken the attitude that, you throw as hard as you can and for as long as you can, and then we'll get somebody else. It's a, it, and that's cruel for one thing, not healthy for the players, not healthy for the 14-year-old boys who are going around asking for preemptive Tommy Johns because they know they'll need it eventually. Um, but it's unhealthy for the game because the stories that baseball used to tell, matchups, ace versus ace, ace versus slugger, are endemic to its charm and to its history. And you can't have those anymore. They just don't exist. So who are you going to relate to? The nameless, faceless relievers who, come and throw 100 miles an hour for a season and then are replaced because their arm shredded. So again, a radical solution, I would increase the size of the pitching roster, pitching staff. It's currently 13, and it's not nearly enough. The Dodgers used 47 pitchers during this off season. I'm sorry, during the season. The
Mhm.
Mets 46. And when the Dodgers had to add somebody the other night because Tanner Scott has now an elbow problem, that made it 48. It's ridiculous. Where do you even find them, right?
Mhm.
They run out. So my idea is that we have a healthy scratch list as we do in the NHL. And why should your yesterday's starting pitcher be counted among the total of active pitchers for the next game? You're not going to use him. He can't throw. So you put him on the healthy scratch list. And the two most exhausted relievers, or three most exhausted relievers, and give them a couple of days off and switch back into the people who've already had a rest, who've needed a rest, a recharge. Um, and that way the pitching staff becomes fluid, and a manager gets to designate before every game which 11 pitchers he wants to have for that day. It will be a big transition, and maybe you have to start with 12, but to push baseball back toward the kind of formula of the kind of pitching that they used to have. That means starting pitchers have to go more than 5.2 innings. They have to learn to throw not max heave on every pitch. And relievers will begin to you won't need six and seven a game anymore, right? And then worry about what you're going to do tomorrow.
Yep.
Um, so that's my, that's radical, but I
Yeah,
like it.
no, it seems I love that idea. It is kind of crazy when you think about it that starting pitchers that clearly are not going to play in a game count against their roster, and that
Right.
every team could use more relief pitchers. So love it. All right, so this is the last question. Um, just seeing how depressed and sad my son was last night after the Brewers got 3 hits and got shut out by the Cubs, and thinking about how happy we were the other day when they were winning the games, and going back to my childhood, I cried with happiness when Cecil Cooper got a hit against the Angels, put the Brewers basically in the World Series, and then I cried with sadness when Gorman Thomas struck out against Bruce Sutter to end the World Series. What have been the saddest and happiest 2 moments in your life around
Ever?
baseball? No,
Ever?
not ever, but just around baseball.
Oh, no, I mean ever in
Ever,
baseball.
ever in baseball, yes.
I was at the game in May 62 when Mickey Mantle, who was my hero, uh, batting left-handed in a 4-3 game, meaningless game in May against the Minnesota Twins, hit a ball to short. Because he was batting left-handed, he could see that the shortstop, Versailles, bobbled the ball. And so he put on speed that he no longer had, trying to run like the wind he no longer could summon from his very, very broken up body. And he crashed in the base path, just about, like splayed out there, his fingers reaching in the dirt for first base. Um, he had torn the adductor muscle off the bone. Ouch, right? Um, and I've never, he said to me, and I perfectly agreed, never heard a big place get so quiet so fast.
Mhm.
Um, they're fragile. They're fragile people, um, and they're maybe even more fragile now because they're so buffed up. As Terry Pendleton, the former third baseman for the Braves, said, "We were better off fat. You can't pull fat."
That's right.
Um, so, they're fit, they're superior athletes. Are they in better baseball shape? Lots of old guys say no, they're not. Uh,
Mhm.
happiest moment. Oh boy. You know, Sandy Koufax came to my daughter's bat mitzvah and taught her how to throw a curveball. She's a pastry chef with really big hands. And so she's nervous. She hasn't gone up on the bema to do the thing yet. And Sandy is a little uncomfortable. She's in a room with all these people, grandparents, aunts and uncles, the rabbi, the cantor, their wives. And so I brought a bag of balls. I said, Sandy, look at Emma's hands. She can throw, she can throw your curveball. He brightens up, because Sandy Koufax with a ball in his hand is Sandy Koufax. Now, my hands are ridiculous, but he showed her that he held the ball between these two fingers. And all the spin of his curveball, because his middle finger is about 2.5 times as long as mine, came from the spin that was generated by pushing down on the seams of the ball. And of course, there was a little guy being bar mitzvahed with her, whose voice was in the middle of changing, and he croaks and says, "That's not how you throw a curveball." Room goes, room goes silent. Um, and Sandy says very kindly, "Well, just show me your curveball." And the kid does, the typical thing, which is like this. It's the one
Mhm.
that killed so many Dodger elbows for a thank you, Branch Rickey. And Sandy very patiently says to him, well, if you do it that way, it puts a lot of stress on, the soft tissue in the wrist. Not to mention, if you just hold your elbow, you can feel what it does to your elbow. Try it my way, just with, oh no, my coach said. So Sandy's very polite. He's actually really good with kids. And the third time Jonathan said it, Sandy said, Jonathan, that's not how you throw a fucking curveball.
Well, I can't imagine a better way to end our interview. Jane, congratulations on your book, Make Me Commissioner. I know what's wrong with baseball and how to fix it. Everybody go buy it. It's an amazing, wonderful book. you can just sense the personality that bleeds through the page. And thank you for taking the time to join our show. And best wishes in watching the Brewers win the World Series this year, Jane.
I told you what I'm pulling for.
Yeah,
Seattle Brewers. That's
yeah.
my
We'll have a couple hundred people
watch
watching.
watch
Yeah.
Major League schwitzing.
This has been a
Just
lot of fun.
remember, you can't pull fat.
Fat. Yeah, I live by that motto. Although I still seem to have managed to pull it. Uh, thank you, Jane.